Mishmar, we have speaking, if you haven't guessed, Shana Aleph, Eliyah Avishur. Shana Bet, Eli Waxman. And we are grateful to Gabi Baron, 2014-2016 Leva Torah, who sponsored Mishmar tonight in memory of Sarah Bas Reuven, Eliyah Shalom, Morton and Helen Axelrod, who sponsored Mishmar in honor of Shlomo Gasner.
Hey everyone. All right, so there is a contradiction built into all of us. We have our independent side, which I know you've all felt. It's the desire to express yourself, to show the world who you are, what your values are, to carve your own path. And we also have another side of us, which is a little stressed out by this independence. It wants to take a step back. You make the hard decisions. You tell me what to do. I want to succeed. However I get there, You tell me what to do. So they seem a little not in tune, like something that can't exist in the same world. But in reality, not only can they coexist, but they can thrive in harmony and lead to better avodas Hashem. So Sefer Breshit and Shemot kind of exemplify each of these individual values. Breshit exemplifying independence and Shemot exemplifying dependence or servitude. So Abraham is probably the best example of independence. He's really the first man ever who goes against the grain. You have 2,000 years of societal expectations, you have religion, you have morals, you have laws, and Abraham says, none of that. I don't want any of that. I want to carve my own path. I want to say, this is what I believe in, and this is what's right. But within that independence, there's a bit of a scary other side that manifests in Esav. He's also very independent. He hunts for himself, he cooks for himself, he makes his own morals. He doesn't care what the world thinks. But obviously, there's a moral distinction between Abraham and Esav. So what's the difference between them? Abraham is someone who takes his independence, he takes his desire to work for a greater good, and he applies it to the greater good. Esav says, I want to be independent, I'm following my own selfish desires. In a way, he's ruled over by his independence, and doesn't really have the same freedom that Abraham has. Now, Shemot kind of takes a different approach to this, and it's teaching us a little more of how we can apply the independence and the dependence together, the servitude together. So there's the bad part of servitude, which is obviously slavery in Egypt. Bnei Israel are beaten down by the Mitzrim. Whatever this Mitzri tells you to do, you have to do. You want to go build bricks? Build bricks. You want to build a building? Build building. They don't have the opportunity to show what their values are or express themselves in any way. But Hashem gives us the great opportunity to go out of Egypt. Yetziat Mitzrayim. We become an independent nation, Bnei Chorim, right? And so within that, we have both the lessons that servitude taught us, and we have the newfound independence. And so the difference between Esav and the Jewish people now that they're leaving, they don't let the independence get to their head, especially Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu leaves his Paro's house. He leaves this terrible morals of Mitzrayim. He says, I'm not going to follow any of these things. He sees the oppression of the Jews. He sees the broken morals of Mitzrayim, and he leaves. He carves his own path. He becomes independent. And while standing alone, he also decides to submit himself to Hashem's will. So that, in a way, is much different from letting independence rule over you. So I think this is really the lesson of Breshit and Shemot, in that in today's society, there's a big push for independence. There's a big push to just be you, express yourself. What you want is what the world wants. And really, that's a backwards logic. Judaism, the reality is that our self-expression is super important, but because my unique avodas Hashem, my unique way of expressing myself is going to help others and help the world build itself. No one can be an Oved Hashem the way I am. And so the lesson of Shemot and Breshit are teaching us that we need to be our own, but we need to be our own under the umbrella of being an Oved Hashem. So I hope you can all find your own unique individual and independent ways to be an Oved Hashem.
Wow. So many beautiful faces. Thank you, Av, for reminding me that Mishmar is tonight and I have to write my Dvar Torah. Thank you for that. So, let's get started. A king, again a king. A king had a son, his favorite son. And for this son, he appointed many servants so that the son could be cared for. He appointed a chef, a person to style his wardrobe. He appointed someone to look out for him whenever he goes out, to make sure that he's always protected. And he appointed everything he needed. He even appointed a doctor. Why did he need a doctor if he wasn't sick? Well, this doctor was there just in case something bad happened to him. This doctor was ordered by the king to do whatever means necessary to save the prince. If this prince is hurt, he has to do whatever means are necessary to save the prince. If the prince has to take something that's disgusting, if the prince, chas v'shalom, something happens to his arm, he has to amputate his arm, the doctor has permission to do whatever he has to do to fix the prince. So let's go back a step. What is personality? Well, let's define the word first. Personality, the definition of it, is a combination of characteristics or qualities that form an individual's distinctive character. A personality is what defines us and makes us the individuals that we are. In our personalities, we also have something called traits. Those traits are what make up our personality. These traits are constantly changing, depending on our situations, depending on our surroundings, who we're around. Though it is true, we are born with certain attributes which go towards our personalities, we are constantly growing and shaping our new personalities in our surroundings. We can even see in this week's Parsha. What do I mean? Well, you look at Yaakov and Esau. They both are described as totally different people from the beginning. If you look, Rav Kook writes that they aren't seemingly different. They actually have one similarity. You see that Rav Kook says that Yaakov and Esau had a trait of cruelty inside them, and they both channeled it, but they channeled it in different ways. They took different paths. So if you look at the pasuk in Chav Gimel in Toldot, it says Hashem said to Rivka, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 people from your insides will be divided. 1 people will overpower the other, and the older will serve the younger. Okay, that's crazy. The older will serve the younger. What's going on here? So what is this pasuk saying? According to Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, he suggests that Rivka had been suffering from the jostling offspring who were so eager to emerge into the world and go in their separate ways. In fact, according to the sages, they're vying with each other for the privilege of coming out first. They wanted to be the firstborn. They wanted that privilege. But once they heard that prophecy from Shem, they were like, no, you first. It's like Rosh Shammai and Rav Machlis going to a door. It's like, no, you first. No, it doesn't work out. So they didn't want to go first. They wanted to be the last one. And then again, you see it again in another pasuk that it says that, and 3 pasukim later in 27, it says the boys grew up. Esau was a man who's skilled in hunting and a man of the field, while Yaakov was a man of integrity and a dweller in tents. Okay, so you see that they grew up in very similar houses. They grew up in the exact same house, basically, but they came out in different ways. So Rashi has a very interesting idea on this. Rashi says, and I quote, "So long as they were young, they could not be distinguished by what they did, and no one paid much attention to their characters." So that means that so what is Rashi trying to say? He's saying that Yaakov and Esau grew up very similarly. They had very similar upbringings. But once they became of age, like 13 years old, they decided to realize what they really wanted in life. They decided to want to take different paths. And then finally, at 15, that's when they took their separate paths, as described in the Pasuk. So what am I trying to get at here? Our personality is what defines us and makes us human. Our traits are what distinguish us from one another. I've said this. It's what makes us special, as Avishur said. If you remember, last time I spoke, I mentioned that there's a compass inside of us. And we have to make that compass emerge and make that compass go crazy with our emunah and our neshama. So there's always a compass inside of us. Well, now let's take that idea and take it to the next level. Our compass have finally started to show. We are in the middle of it. We're in Chorsman, going hard, constantly in the base, and our compass is starting to emerge. If not, that just means we have to put in more work. Though the compass, it's just the beginning. Let's take the compass idea deeper. We have to start to take an internal check and take a step back to make this compass idea work even more. What do I mean by taking a step back? In order to grow, I forgot where I heard this quote. In order to grow, we have to realize that we have already grown to grow more. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's like Chazara. We first have to learn the Gemara, and then we get the idea of what's going on. Then once we know the idea, then we can go over it again and learn it better. And then again and again and again. And then once we get it memorized, it's beautiful. And we keep going over it and going over it and going over it until we remember it. If you take a look at the prince story, the prince had everything he needed. Everything he needed. And even had a doctor assigned to him, ready to do anything to save him. What we need to do is we need to be able to have a doctor like that in our lives. What do I mean by that? If we all take a deep look into ourselves and see that our values and traits are all start with what we assess. We have to assess ourselves and see what our traits and values are. And once we do that, we can see how to best grow in the future. By doing this, we can get rid of things that are holding us back. The doctor is ready to amputate anything that makes this prince ill. So we have to be ready to take something that might be holding us back and remove it so that we can grow forward. Our potential is unlimited, and we can keep growing no matter what. In order to do this internal review, it takes a lot of strength and bravery. For some people, we may not want to look into ourselves because we may not want to see who we truly are. We may be scared to see who we truly are. Because it's scary sometimes to go deep into yourself and start to realize what you are and who you are. I know it's scary for me, and I know it's scary for other people, and I have friends who are scared to do it. It's scary for some people to go deep, but it's important to. It's actually the opposite if you think about it. If we dug into figuring ourselves out, then we can realize what is making the issues, what we can fix, what we can do to make ourselves better. I want to give everyone here a homework assignment. You don't have to do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Whatever. But it's something that's very important. I want everyone here on Shabbos, I'm doing it for at least an hour, but everyone here to take a step back. And just for 10 minutes, sit down and think, how can you become a better person? What are my values? What do I want to accomplish this Shana Aleph? Think about what you want. So now, once you think about what you want, then you can start to grow even more. Because you've got to realize that you have grown already. Everyone here has grown. Everyone here has grown. You have to realize that you've grown, and then once you realize you've grown, you can grow even more. You can reach the sky's the limit. So I want everyone here to be zoche in figuring out their paths, just as Yaakov did and Esav did, and having a clear thought on what their paths are, and being able to figure out what their futures are. Have an amazing Shabbos, guys.